I'm going to begin by removing the most damaged of these strips. They're all damaged, but this one is the most obvious of a problem. I'm starting to remove the nails. You can see what's going on here. This is all cracked away. See that? See this? And these are all mangled. All this along this strip. And I think what we're going to do, I know what we're going to do, is we're going to make a new silver band to go over each one of these borders that will hide all of that and make it nice and clean. I'm about to remove the last of the nails. There we go. And then the final one. Okay, I've removed it, and now you can take a look at what's going on here. You see how that's mangled at the edges. That's what we're going to cover with a new plate. There's a good example of what's going on in here. Now I'm going to begin planishing the edge, and you can see this particular edge. This one is particularly mangled right here. See that? See all that around there? So what we're going to do is we're going to use an anvil. Here we go. Now, people think of an anvil as a blacksmith's anvil, big, heavy anvil with a big, heavy hammer. This is a silversmith's jeweler's anvil. And what I'm going to do is use a particular kind of hammer. It's called a collet hammer. And it has a round face in one direction and a round face in the other direction. You can see that. And I'm going to begin by planishing. Now, planishing, as it sounds if you think about it, means making a plane. It doesn't mean forging, where you go and distort the metal. So hear that every time you hits the bottom and it goes ring, ding, you hear it ring. That means you've gone as far as you can go, because you don't want to smash the metal between the hammer and the anvil. You just want to create a plane. Now, one of the elements of this is you planish it on both sides. So I've gotten it straightened out a bit on this side, and now I'm going to roll it over, and I'm going to planish it on the back. One of the issues with something like this is that it's different than working a piece of fresh metal. I often refer to the work that I do as art backwards. You start off with something that used to be very carefully made and has gone through a life and it's gotten damaged. And now we're reversing the process, finding out what went wrong, and putting it back together again. One of the challenges in doing this kind of work is that you don't want to make the object be brand new. It's not the objective. The objective is to create a balance between what might consider damage and what one might consider the legitimate marks of age. And that's an ongoing challenge. Another aspect of this is, as you can see, this has all this embossing and repoussé here. Repoussé being a French word for pushed out. One of the reasons I'm using this kind of hammer is to make sure that I don't get into the embossed areas and damage or flatten those areas. Now what I'm doing is preparing to do the soldering, and I start off with flux, which is that orange-yellow stuff that you see in the lower right-hand corner, and I'm heating up the edge that I want to solder and rubbing it with that flux, which is a chemical with, among other things, ferric chloride in it, which will oxidize or reduce actually all of the oxides that are on the surface. and clean the metal so that it is chemically able to accept the solder. Now that I've wiped everything off that I removed with the flux, I'm now going to take this and this steel brush and abrade the surface to make sure that the surface is completely clean of any oxides. You may have noticed when I was doing the planishing that the edge was wrinkled. That's because the edges, when the original object was manufactured, took up more space lengthwise than the material that was made by the formed by the repoussé. So what happens is that that material winds up kind of curled like that. And so what I'm doing is I'm removing the stresses in that by clipping little pieces out of it, which provides room for the material to move around and also will provide little entry points for my pallets of solder, pallets being little pieces. Here I'm preparing the solder to use to join the two parts, the original material that you've seen and the pieces of silver that I prepared for the frame on the outside. This material is silver-bearing solder, and it's what is used by plumbers now because lead solder is no longer permissible. And I'm cutting it into little pallets, little chunks that will be the right size to place on the surface as I move along and join the two faces with it by heat and solder flux. All right, now we're getting ready to do the job itself. So here I'm putting the pallets in place in those little pieces, areas that I've cut away. And now I'm heating it from underneath, by the way, to draw the solder in instead of overheating the solder on the top and just making a bubble. And then here we go. There goes one by capillary action, and there goes the other one. And it's going right into the space between the new piece on the front and the old piece that you see. Okay, and here I am preparing for the end piece. As you can see, here we go. We've connected the end piece of the frame, and now I'm going to do the same thing here. So here it is. We're at the last step for this phase where we've gotten everything, all the new metal has been put on, and now we're going to go to the next step, which is to get all this regularized and do final finishing, put new holes in it for the for reattaching it and moving on.